Ben Folds, hello.
Hello.
At one point last night you said, how about that band behind me? Looked like you were having fun.
Oh yeah, it's a rush when it comes together. I used to play in orchestras when I was a kid. That's what I thought I was going to do for a living is be a percussionist in an orchestra.
So you did it as a kid. I was wondering if you had some training or experience as a kid.
Yeah, I've been doing this orchestra gig with my music now for about 6 years, and it's taken a while to get used to being on the other side of the conductor because I was always in the back of the room counting measures and playing triangles and timpani and stuff.
So did you grow up playing in the symphony, going to the symphony?
Well, yeah, when you're a kid you don't want to really sit through Mahler, but I was forced to. I'm glad now that I was. North Carolina School of the Arts was near my house, and so I played in the youth orchestra when I was just a wee lad.
So I know it was originally percussion, but it was percussion in classical music you were doing?
Yeah, specifically that's what I liked. I wasn't a big fan of the marching band stuff. I really liked the way percussion fit into proper music.
Uh-huh. Why perform your music with an orchestra?
It was sort of circumstantial. A guy who was really on the ball in Perth, Australia, convinced me it was a good idea. I didn't think it was a good idea because I'd seen a couple of rock bands play with orchestras, and I just thought it was a weird exercise. And,
it's sort of fraught with potential problems, right?
It has a lot of problems because if you play with a band, the drums and the guitars just spill over into the orchestra. The orchestra is sort of relegated to playing whole notes, and it really comes off like they're doing wet T-shirt contest night in order to pay some orchestra bills. But what was exciting about this to me was the idea that we would arrange my music in a way that made the orchestra the rock band. Because the orchestra has grooved for hundreds of years. Well, why does it have to sit there and go, for a while behind me? So they're really taking care of a lot of the percussive elements of the songs. The other thing that was interesting to me, or that made me want to do it, was that I've always heard my songs more in this context than I have in rock band context. To me,
what does that mean?
Well, it means I structure the songs so that the voice leading and the potential arrangement inside the song can be carried by an orchestra, or it could be carried by a choir, or you could busk it. It would be built. The songs will be built so that they can stand up to a lot of different treatments. The rock band treatment was a bit of a twist when I started out as a piano player playing in sort of grunge era. Playing punk clubs, because my band would beat the songs up. They would take otherwise pretty chords, and a lot of these songs we're playing with the orchestra now were just played with a band crashing cymbals and distorted bass guitar. And so hearing them this way, in a funny kind of way, it's more coming back home for those songs.
But do you mean that when you write them, you hear them that way, or you imagine them with that kind of orchestration, or potentially with the orchestration?
Yeah, I hear way too many parts at once. When I'm writing a song, I'm hearing parts that actually won't all go together. That there are too many of them. An orchestra is a great outlet for that because you can have a lot of counterpoint going on at one time. There were songs that we did for our first album, Ben Folds 5, self-titled album, and we made it really simple. We just played piano, bass, and drums, but I had string parts in my head and all kinds of things, and I would bring them up to the band, and they disciplined me not to do it. They're like, this is not the time to introduce all that stuff. Let's just keep it really, really simple and get the point across and stuff.
Were there times when you're listening last night where you thought maybe some songs gained from having the orchestras and others didn't?
Yeah, well, sometimes they don't work, and you have to go through the process of scoring the whole thing. I work with about 5 or 6 different arrangers. I probably could do it myself, but then I wouldn't have time to do anything else. And so we get together and we work on these things. And sometimes after months and months of scoring and playing it with a couple of orchestras, you realize it didn't work. So, there's 20 grand down the tubes plus all the all the time that you put into it. And I'd say maybe 1 out of 3 doesn't work. And that's why when I started this venture playing with orchestras, I really did consider it a long-term work in progress. The songs that were played last night at the Kennedy Center are, to some extent, still works in progress. Not that they're not fit for consumption yet, but I will find things almost every night that I think that needs to be changed, or we can do it better. So we get back to the drawing board and we'll revise as we go along.
You joked about being referred to as king of the nerds sometimes. I wonder, how do you see yourself, what you're doing in writing and performing songs?
Well, I mean, I think that the whole nerd thing comes from breaking with the rock tradition of having long hair and a hairy chest, and because that's really not most people. And the themes that I think that I started out writing about, that I probably still do, don't necessarily come from a place of all-knowing or strength. There's some doubt in there, and it's not the typical rock doubt of, did I drink too much and say the wrong thing, baby? It's not like that. It's the bigger things. And what you find out is, if you write from the position of the underdog, suddenly all these people come out of the woodwork. Hey, it's 90% of the people feel like they were the uncool ones. So most people feel that way. So there was a whole niche, and I think there were other bands and other writers who were doing the same thing. And what does the press do with that? Well, they just call us all nerds. And it's funny to watch. I remember there was a Spin, I think it was a Spin magazine thing, where it was like, a special on nerd rock, and it was a long time ago. It was Weezer and me and a couple other people, and we all reacted the same way to the question, like, how's that feel to be, the big nerd? And we're like, I didn't really think of myself that way. It's just, you got to call yourself, people have to call you something when you're in show business, and so that works.